Sit next to Kenny. He gives me warmth.
He likes his legs to be caressed.
Uh-oh. Also,
body. It was like it sucked. And I was like, I should have my coconut water.
Should have had a rack of lamb.
I did have gyro fries last night, and I feel pretty good today. So
There you go.
I'll stick with that.
Well, good news. We're live now.
Oh.
Yeah. So welcome,
Hey.
everybody. I hope everybody, I say that thinking I hope everybody online can actually hear us. If not, they can only see us. And that's just going to be a very poor start. Be like, oh, it's not getting fixed now. Well, you already kicked this thing off?
Yeah,
Let's
for
do
the
it.
live studio audience.
What are we
Let's-
talking about again?
I don't know.
True bourbon community.
Audience
roundtable.
questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
We go in blind every single time. All right.
So we have to do the clap thing?
I don't think we actually. I do. You know
Yeah,
why?
let's
Because
clap.
I'm recording here and I'm recording there, and it's recording here, and that way you get all in sync.
Everyone clap. Just everyone start clapping. There we go.
That was terrible.
100 episodes in, we can't get the fucking clap.
Mm.
Hey, at least the internet's working.
That's true. Hey, everybody, this is Bourbon Pursuit, and welcome to Bourbon Community Roundtable number 100. We're
made it.
live here at Pursuit Spirits, and I couldn't say first off, thank you to everybody that came here tonight to be here in person. This is a very, very special evening because everybody that's up here, we've known each other now over a decade. I mean, this is a decade in the making of how long we've been doing this podcast, and especially this particular show that has kind of been a cornerstone of Bourbon Pursuit and why people love it so much, just because we have some of the best and brightest individuals that come on, and Carrie to come on and be I'm just messing.
No, I was going to say the same thing.
To actually come on and talk about a hodgepodge of just whatever is kind of fun, interesting, and new in bourbon that we typically couldn't talk to a master distiller about or anything like that. And we just have a lot of great there's a lot of good connections, but there's also a lot of good discord, a lot of back and forth, and that's the best part of it. And the first question that came in through chat tonight was, Blake, how was your audio?
Can you hear?
I think it's amazing every week, so I don't know why that's even a question. Has there been an issue in the past, or are you telling me?
I actually wasn't sure if we had to come in person still because of your Wi-Fi. That's why I thought we all had to fly to Kentucky.
All right, well, before we get started, let's go ahead and kick it off. Obviously, I'm Kenny, one of the hosts of Bourbon Pursuit, and start all the way to the left, and then we'll go this way to do the intros, as usual.
So I'm Blake from Sealbox and Bourboner, and so this makes the 100th roundtable in a row that I have been on. And so other than Kenny, because I think Ryan's missed some.
I'm
here
giving
and
myself
there.
a clap because I'm the only other one.
Come on. Kind of planes, trains, and automobiles of roundtables. I've done them from Disney. I've done them from, hotel rooms, but it is fun. Like, I think it's the part that I love of just sitting down, talking about this industry. So it's really cool to do the 100th episode together, and thanks for having me. That was a long intro.
Am I supposed to introduce myself?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. People don't know, they have no idea who you are.
I'm Ryan, one of the tripod of Bourbon Pursuit. But thank you all for coming. You got a hell of a deal. Kenny did not ask me about the price for this event. And when he told me it was $20, I was like, you got to talk to the numbers man before. No, but
Well,
really-
now looking out, I feel like we could double,
But they also have to
triple the
listen to us
size.
talk for an hour and a
Yeah.
half. So I think it was good whiskey, but then $20. Yeah,
It's like a
we would've
timeshare
paid
special.
them
Yeah,
to
exactly.
listen to this.
No, but thank you all for coming. This is a surreal moment. 100 episodes, almost 10 years. Our 10-year anniversary will be next March. And it just blows my mind because me and Kenny sat in my basement with a shitty MacBook and a shitty USB mic and just had an idea of talking about bourbon. And I cannot believe this was not in our 10-year plan to have a 100th episode, nor to have a brand, or to have a community that supports us so much. So it's very humbling, very gratifying, and very cool. So thank you all, and appreciate it.
That definitely deserves a clap. I'll
for
go
sure,
with that.
for sure. This is Jordan from Breaking Bourbon, one of the three guys who runs BreakingBourbon.com. It's fantastic to be here. So it's much like Kenny and Ryan and Fred. This is our 10-year anniversary too. I think, besides doing this in front of a live studio audience, which is amazing, I think what's more amazing is that all of us sitting up here started off as just people who knew each other on the internet. And since then, we've all grown and done very well in the bourbon space. And more importantly, we've become really good friends in life. which I think is, the most important thing about bourbon and the community it builds. And it's really special to be here tonight.
My
For
wife
sure.
still questions the internet friends. She's like, "You're meeting who?"
Yeah, those guys,
It's dicey.
So
It's dicey.
yeah.
And this was somebody that I'm so excited that came today, because anybody that doesn't know Carrie is actually one of the OGs of the Roundtable, one of the, I think, first 15 episodes that was on, and has always really kind of been a comedic relief for a very long time. And I'm just so excited that he came all the way from Atlanta to be here for this special night. So Carrie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
For those of you who have been around from the beginning, the best episodes were the first ones that I was on because I provide. No, it's I started this with, or I told Kenny this would be a good idea to get us all together, and they were honestly the best times that I had in bourbon were when we would get together online and just talk about bourbon for an hour. And it's just amazing to be back up here with all these guys that I love and to see how far they've come. And it's just awesome to be called back up. So I appreciate it to all of you.
You were smart to quit.
Yeah.
Instead of keep going like us.
All right. You all know me, Brian, with Sippin' Corn and Bourbon Justice. And the internet friends thing is so accurate. And Blake actually did a bottle of Wilderness Trail that had internet friends. And it was that meme of that guy staring at the computer with his face being lit up by the light and the wife kind of looking around the corner. And it's like, yeah, we're internet friends, Laura. This is who I'm going to hang out with. And it's been such a great ride, and I've loved seeing what everyone has done. We've grown up so much, and we've all really accomplished things, and that's just been fantastic to see. And it wouldn't be possible without you all, and that's just shown by the support here tonight. So thanks for being here, everybody.
Some of us have not grown up very much.
I can vouch for that person to my left.
I'm Fred Minnick, and I don't know what number Roundtable this is for me, but I was not there in the beginning. I love bourbon. I love the bourbon community, but I'm a writer, and I started out as a writer, writing for magazines, writing books, and I was at this conference called Tales of the Cocktail one year. I think it might have been 2016 or 17. And this guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, are you Fred Minnick?" And I'm like, it's not out of the ordinary that someone would come up to me and like, maybe they have a book or something like that. And he's like, "I recognize your voice." I was like, "Huh? What?" He's like, "Yeah, I heard you on Bourbon Pursuit." And I had just did this podcast, and it aired, and I was just like, podcast. And I reached out to Kenny and Ryan sometime later and said, "Hey, how would you all feel about me joining Bourbon Pursuit? I'd really like to start a podcast. I kind of think, I think that's the future." And, when I did that, we became, business partners. But what happened was so much more. And I want to share a story with you all about how much these guys mean to me. When the pandemic hit, I lost 95% of my income within a matter of like a couple of days. The only thing that I had left was Bourbon Pursuit and this little bitty tiny thing called the YouTube channel that I was doing. Kenny and Ryan knew about the struggles I was having financially in that moment. And they gave, we have, like all businesses, you have like quarterly dividends and everything. They gave me their share of the quarterly dividend to help me get through the beginning of that pandemic. And anytime I think about this podcast, I think about these guys and what they're doing, I go to that moment because I was at the very bottom of my career, not because of my fault, because of the situation. Like, I'm an event guy. I had a magazine. Nobody was reading magazines, touching magazines. And without those two, I might have had to get a job for Brown Forman.
Had to get a job.
Might have had to get a job.
Period.
So,
So Pursuit United makes Fred's top one on his end of the year list. Why?
they keep trying on that one. But,
That won't be the only reference to that tonight.
We knew the seed we were planting back in 2020.
Was
But-
that the same year you went to San Francisco and ruined Henry McKenna?
No.
Oh.
That was several years before. I was a dickhead before that. But I just want to say a toast to Kenny and Ryan for starting
Cheers.
this and always
Thanks,
being an
Fred.
advocate to Bourbon and being a great friend.
Appreciate
Cheers
it.
to that.
Thank you, Fred.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Well, let's get into this. Before we actually do, Ryan, tell what glasses are in front of us so we can begin our process here.
Yeah, I thought it'd be, really cool that we could share and remember this special day. It's such a big milestone for us that we could celebrate, and by selecting a barrel as a group. We did this before. Fred was not a part of that, so it's cool that Fred's here and Carrie's here to do this. But so I pulled a couple of my favorite double oak bourbon samples and double oak rye samples from some of our single barrels that are in our Redneck Rickhouse out there. And so glasses 1 through 4, hope you really enjoy them, and hope you pick some special. I think they're really good ones. So
We'll pick, and then
yeah, and then two, Carrie was gracious enough he found our very first original Bourbon Community Roundtable pick that we did at Buffalo Trace. And it was such a surreal moment because like back then we never got to pick barrels or do anything. Like we take that for granted today. And it was like one of our first barrel picks we got to do. And it kind of gave us the idea to like really start a single barrel club and all these Patreon things and eventually our own brand. So it's really cool that bottle's here, that we get to share that at the end of this 100th episode as well. So thank you for doing that, Carrie.
Yeah, no problem. Even though the picture of everybody picking the barrel, I'm not in it because I wasn't there.
You were there in spirit.
but-
What I
um,
wish I would have thought about bringing was the beer that went along with it.
So good.
so
that was
so good.
so
shit.
they didn't
I have one in my
proof-
house.
They didn't proof it out of the barrel. They let it age in a Buffalo Trace barrel for like a year. So it went in at 13 and a half and it comes out at probably
17.
80%.
Yeah.
Like, and I drank one night and I'm like just talking and my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I only had one beer. And I tell you, that was the most potent but delicious beer I think I've ever had.
Yeah, I blacked out too.
It was amazing. Third Turn Brewery here in Louisville.
Yes, exactly what it was. All right, well, fellas, go ahead. You've done barrel picks before, so go ahead, nose, taste, do everything like that. Let's go ahead and start the conversation. And the first one is actually something that Carrie had mentioned to me as we were trying to figure out, well, what are we going to be talking about tonight? And it's, well, how has bourbon changed in the last 10 years? And I think that's something that we can look at from a few different perspectives. One, obviously, barrel picks have become, it started off as something that was very exclusive, very something that like you're only in the know that you could get, and to the point where it became so saturated where you can't even get into a Four Roses or anything like that anymore. And now we're starting seeing the tailwind of that. I'm kind of curious, what all have you seen in the past 10 years has really changed inside of bourbon for you?
Okay, I'll go first. So I still tell people the story. They don't believe it, but it's true. In 2014, I was in Total Wine. It was October when 2014 Buffalo Trace Antique Collection was coming out. And I remember I just learned about it, and I went into Total Wine, which is pretty close to my work. And there was a guy walking, and he had a bottle of Sazerac 18 in his hands. And I had never bought a BTAC before. I saw it. I said, "Hey, what are you doing with that?" He's like, "I'm trying to find a shelf space for it." And I was like, "Wow, I'll buy it. I'll take that from you, buy it." And it's like I remember going outside and buying the bottle and being like, "This is unbelievable," but knowing that like that was never going to happen again, and probably is never going to happen again. But to me, there are a lot more bottles that are coming back into shelves that I haven't seen in a long time. And I feel like the industry as a whole maybe is starting to slow down a little bit, and maybe some of this rare stuff that we've been chasing for so long is going to become a little bit more available.
Oh, you really think Pappy's going to be available?
I don't.
Okay.
But Weller 12 I've seen on shelves, and Weller Full Proof I've seen on shelves, and some of the stuff and old OWA that used to be sitting on shelves, I feel like it's starting to come back a little bit more.
I mean, everything you said so far is all in the Sazerac portfolio. Is that the target that you think is the one that's like, okay, maybe these will be back on shelves, or is there something else outside of that portfolio?
Yeah, I feel like the Sazerac is what 85% of the the world is searching for. Some of they want to find Blanton's on the shelf, and they want
Everybody
to
wants to find Blanton's.
Yeah, they want to find.
People came here and
Pappy on the
asked for
shelf.
Blanton's. We're like, we're sorry, we don't have any.
I think we're getting to a
I didn't
point.
see it on the table.
There's no Blanton's on the table tonight. Sorry, y'all.
We got a Shotsky somewhere of it, probably.
I just think we're starting to see some of the allocated stuff maybe starting to work its way back on the shelves. We're never going to see Pappy sitting on the shelf, and you're never going to walk into Total Wine and see somebody walking around with Buffalo Trace, a BTAC bottle. But some of I think the next tier stuff, I'm starting to see a little bit more of. I don't know if y'all are seeing it outside of Georgia.
I would agree with that. I almost feel like we are coming back a little bit. So I went back and listened to some older Roundtable episodes, and we were talking about how age statements were coming off of bottles. And one of the things I said was like, oh yeah, probably in 6-8 years, somebody's going to come back and just put a big 8 on the bottle, and it's going to be out there, and they're going to promote that it's age stated. And that was when Elijah Craig was pulling age statements off their 12-year, claiming it's not about the age, it's more about the blend, which I agree with that to a little bit, but I think it was a
But they're going to
production
bring the
issue.
12-year-old age statement back as soon as they have the stocks to do so.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
it
for sure.
matters.
But I don't think we're
But-
too far away from that happening.
I mean,
No,
Old
it's there,
Granddad
yeah.
just had a huge release of their
Yeah.
16-year.
Yeah, my point to that is like distillers just yap about whatever they can that helps them sell product in that moment. They don't actually ever believe anything. They just want to sell something.
Well, and it's some of what we've talked about in the past of like who's more important, the master distiller or the salesperson, and it's a little bit of both. I've had great whiskeys that don't sell well because there's nobody out there pushing the story, telling the story, and that's what we like to do at Sealbox is push those out there. But then at the same time, you can't. If it's garbage, nobody wants it. But I think we are getting to a better spot in bourbon. And even when people talk about a decline, there's been a lot of new brands, a lot of new bottles. Certainly there is a bit of a slowdown, but there's just so many people still drinking bourbon that are not flipping over to tequila or seltzers or whatever it may be. But there will be a little bit of a thinning out, I would say, over the next few years.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think thinking back over the past 10 years, and I think tying on to that, Blake, it's the societal acceptance of whiskey and bourbon being cool, right? 10 years ago is more still, it was really booming among bourbon enthusiasts. But you can walk into any bar, you walk into any place in America, it's, tons of old-fashioned cocktails, tons of different bourbon bottles. All people, whether they are bourbon enthusiasts or just casual drinkers, like bourbon's cool. And that very much, we've seen that trajectory over the last 10 years, and it continues to be that way, which is great. It's great to share this passion with others who aren't, everyone here tonight and everyone watching online, definitely bourbon enthusiasts. But there's so many others out there that 10 years ago wouldn't have loved bourbon. They would have had a gin tonic or a vodka seltzer or something like that. But they're very much into bourbon now, which is just super cool to see.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on where in the country you're at. Like, I think people in Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky that have been exposed to bourbon for so long, yeah, I love Weller Antique 107. I've had it 1,000 times. I don't need to buy another bottle of it. I'm more interested in really cool, unique distilleries popping up. Like I love Still Austin. I love this JT Millick that just came out. Like I think people are just pushing past like the big six and they're starting to try different because a lot of the craft guys have been doing it for a long time and a lot of the NDPs are coming out with really cool stuff. And I think you're just seeing people shift to like, okay, I have enough. Why do I need 10 more E.H. Taylors when I have a whole vertical of them on my shelf? I want to go explore. And so I think you're just seeing a kind of shift in consumers. Like when we travel and do market visits, anywhere in the Northeast or whatnot, I mean, there's people have just gotten into it in the past year or two, and they are like ecstatic, like pumped up about barrel picks. Like the thirst and the hunger for bourbon is still there. It's just, I think it just depends on the region that you're in. Definitely in the Southeast, I kind of see it as kind of probably plateaued, but in other parts of the country, I think it's still got it's got a nice little runway.
So there's been a lot of focus on what's been said about where we are now and a thinning of consumers a little bit or a plateau of anything. I'm going to bring a little positive cheer here in comparison to what things were 10 years ago. We are looking at the most massively educated consumer audience in the history of whiskey. 10 years ago, I was standing at a bar talking to corporate groups from that would book the Kentucky Derby Museum, and they would have me as an add-on to the bar, and they would just want like Jim Beam and Coke. And if I had an opportunity to do a tasting with someone, I'd have to argue with an old lady for 30 minutes about bourbon doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. And by the time that
Did you lose that one very often?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's always the old ladies. Old ladies are like,
Always.
I ain't got nothing to lose with this motherfucker putting my cane in his chest. You know, bourbon has to be made in Kentucky. They just wouldn't let that go. So I realized, like,
It's Bourbon County, Kentucky.
yeah,
Oh,
it would even get to
One
that
county.
point. But I realized I'd had to stop, you know, talking about that to mass audiences because they don't care, or you get in arguments with old ladies. But my point to that is, look at you all here in this audience. We've got 50 people and thousands online right now because they care about every single detail and facet of American whiskey. 10 years ago, there was a few groups, and it was held, the knowledge was held within those groups. Now, all you all know what a mash bill is. All you know, some of you may even know what Heaven Hill's mash bill is. 10 years ago, they were not disclosing that, okay? So 10 years ago, there was a lack of transparency. We always want more transparency, but there was such a lack of transparency there that it took me and a few other reporters to constantly be asking the questions, and Blake coming on and revealing them online, and a book coming out revealing it, and Kenny talking about it.
I never talked about mash bills.
Well, maybe
forget
not
them
mash
all.
bills, not mash bills, but you would do things that would lead to transparency.
Yeah, I gotta have a cheat sheet to have everything. That's the
Hey,
only way I
same
work.
here. Like, I wrote the book, and I still have to look at my own book for reference.
That's why you write it down.
But my point is like, the education level is so high right now. We are the highest it's ever been, and it's gratifying to me because the evolution of the consumer has created a new category called blends of straights. If you all weren't educated, the term blend could not live in American whiskey. Blend, remember, was a dirty word. Blend was the blenders were fighting the straight distillers to pass the Bottle and Bond Act. Blends undercut straight whiskey after Prohibition because they could add grain neutral spirit and get more on the shelf. Blends have always been the enemy of American whiskey styles, always. And because you all have educated yourselves and you have listened to shows and you've read books and you read blogs and you get on Reddit and you opine all the time, or Facebook groups, because of you, this awesome, beautiful group of people that are bourbon geeks just like us, because of you, not just us, because of you, we have blends of straights that have releases like something like Barrel 36, which is beautiful. Kenny and Ryan can do blends because of you. But 10 years ago, High West gave it a shot, wooed a few people, but it wasn't enough. Today we have blends of straights, and we have the highest education ever in American whiskey history. That's what's different between 10 years ago.
That's a great lead in. We have a Pride of Indiana blend of straight whiskey releasing next Friday at noon.
I actually just poured some myself. Yeah.
But and I look at like people that like new media, so like Bruzel or the Junkies or Mash and Drum, Chad and Sarah, and their audiences are huge, and so the thirst for knowledge and the interest in the category is still there. And every person that's been on Facebook said bourbon's dead, blah blah blah. I saw you in line at Bourbon Fest with 10 bags in your hand, coming out with like, and so it's like, come on, it's not dead. You're still, it's not. It's shifted, and you read the reports of the categories down, and it is. I mean, but Jack Daniels is the big driver of that. Jim Beam, Evan Williams, all the house brands, because people aren't, I guess, binge drinking anymore. They're more like connoisseurs. They're more exploring like really good expressions. They're not there just buying handles of stuff just to get drunk. It's just shifted from like an everyday drinker to like, I want to enjoy something premium and something quality.
I think that's right. And so just today, it was released that MGP had a horrible third quarter.
God damn it! You
I
took
mean-
my intro. I was going to talk
My
about
bad.
next. Keep
My bad.
going.
Well, okay,
Let's
but
lead
I-
into
well,
it.
you
there
can
we
still
go.
go to
There
it.
we go.
But it's so what they what the news story was today is, after this horrible third quarter, they're reducing their distillation, and they're going to focus on their own brands. And we've been talking, this is one thing we've been talking about forever is, why can't MGP do a fucking brand of its own? They mess it up every time that they try. And now they're not selling as much bulk as they did, and they're realizing that they need to do that. So one thing that I did the same thing as Blake. And when you said 8 year, I thought you were going to talk about Old Charter, because we actually broke the story on Old Charter removing the word aged from above the numeral 8 on the neck label to make it sound like they had an 8 year bourbon when they didn't. We broke that shit. But we've been talking about these trends in the industry, and that's really what I'm saying, to the point of, to the more, the enthusiast who's looking for a good bourbon instead of just the highly produced handle. And maybe MGP is picking up on that. And a lot of other brands are picking up on that. And Pursuit and Sealbox are certainly picking up on that. So go ahead, Kenny, run with it.
Blake's keeping MGP stock going well with Pride of Indiana.
There we go.
Very much so.
What if they need more branded sales? I am up for acquisition. I'd like to.
Ryan, what's our famous line around here?
Everything's for sale,
There he is.
including the company.
Including the company. There you go. So, talking about the MGP thing, I think that's kind of like a really good first today topic to kind of really dive into. And I don't want to say I called it, but I remember talking about this at least a couple of years ago, saying the writing is on the wall, not because bourbon being down, but because of Bardstown Bourbon Company, because of all these contract distillers coming online. Bourbon is still like, Kentucky is king. Like, it is not going to change when it comes to that. And so now you're starting to kind of see this unravel a little bit, where first, yes, we have a little bit of a decline in the drinking side. And honestly, I don't really think it's because of this mid-market or upper echelon tier. It's all those lower tiers. That's really what's suffering. That's why Jack Daniel's suffers, right? I mean, it's a $15, $18 bottle. It's a completely different consumer than what's sitting here today or what's listening here in this type of audience. Like the brands that we're all putting out, it's a completely different buyer. And I think those buyers are still active. They're still hungry. Granted, we all bought way too much during the pandemic, but we're still buying today. We're not stopping by any means. But when we start looking at what is the trajectory of where MGP is going to go, it's going to be very, very hard to keep building how Indiana bourbon is going to be better than Kentucky from a consumer standpoint. I just think like that is a hill that is, I don't think they're ever going to cross. I mean, that's just, it's pushing the boulder up the hill and falling back down every single time.
Well,
So,
I don't know about
disagree.
that.
I think
I
you've got
love to
some
hear this.
great
Fine, prove me
anchor-
wrong.
Well, okay, so I guarantey you, everybody in here
Because
has had
Pride of
Smoke
Indiana is
Wagon.
coming out next week.
I'm trying not to hammer that joke, but you just keep giving me softballs. No, I think you look at Smoke Wagon, you look at Penelope,
Bingo.
Mike and Danny are a force.
But this was at a
they're-
time where they were first to market. They had high age stocks. They were doing something completely different.
They still have that.
And then some.
Yeah.
Okay,
You know, well, the thing of it is, though, so over the last 10, 15 years, every city in America, any large city, small city, medium-sized city, they all have one or two or three or four local bourbon distilleries, right? Or whiskey distilleries. And they have their, right? People may like it, people may not like it, but at least they know, hey, you know what? There's people outside of Kentucky producing bourbon, and there's at least a fan base enough that a business stays supported. And I think because of that, an average consumer still may associate bourbon with Kentucky, but they don't think that's the be-all, end-all either, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of great distilleries outside of Kentucky. And even if you're not a bourbon enthusiast, you at least know, well, my local city has a distillery and I like their stuff. So yeah, I'll try stuff from other states. Like they're not chained to just thinking it has to be from Kentucky to be good. Like I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I think it's like they put 100% Angus beef on our hamburger. It's like nobody knows what an Angus is, but it's a descriptor.
Wait, hold on.
And-
There's somebody around here that wrote a book on beef.
Okay.
I wrote an
4-H.
actual book on certified Angus beef, sir. I can tell you all about that. Get
I'll
your
find
phones
a
out,
better
go to the
example.
Amazon. You'll see it's the second book I ever
Actually,
wrote.
It'll be the first
I bought
sale
it
in
out,
like 8
everybody
years.
gets it.
I get what, yeah, it's true. That book never sells.
Yeah.
but it's
Package it with mead.
to me. I think MGP makes fantastic whiskey. I think the problem they're seeing is that they had amazing stocks. You know, that Old Scout, OKI, Boone
Yep.
County. Forgive me if I'm forgetting Baumburger, not Baumburgers, but
Bellmead,
the Blom Brothers.
High West.
Blom Brothers.
And
Right,
but
all
then
that.
you know that all these brands were trying to start up, and all they was available was this 4 to 5 year old MGP, and we saw this when we were starting Pursuit. We were like, I mean, my gosh, there's like probably 50 brands using MGP, but we see and hear about probably 500 more coming out. It's like, how can we out MGP all these other brands, you know? And because Danny and Mike with Penelope were doing their
Right.
thing and doing awesome. Smoke Wagon was, and you know, I see MGP as kind of like Kentucky's Napa when it comes, you know, to bourbon, if you're to wine, and I see MGP as like the Willamette Valley or, you know, the Sonoma or something, you know, that's not necessarily Napa, but it's still great whiskey and it's made in Indiana. And I think people, you know, I ask my friends all the time, I'm like, do you ever look at the back of the bottle? Because I try to look at the market, like not from a whiskey geek standpoint, just general consumers who are just buying to buy because they think it looks cool, it's priced right, and it tastes good. And 80% of them have no idea that you look on the back of the label and it says distilled in Indiana or distilled in Kentucky. You know, that's
Unless
That's
it
just
says
the reality.
Pride of Indiana on the front of it, right? Okay.
This has turned out to be a better commercial than I thought.
So I'll say, you know, I was just there yesterday picking a barrel, and you know, it was fantastic. It's always great to go to that distillery, but what I've always believed since they started their own brands, they created an identity problem within their own company, and they created a culture within their own company that they have to fight each other for stocks. And that's not healthy. So I think some of the problems that we can talk about with MGP is their structure of how they do things. I guarantee you there's some inside baseball that everybody on this panel knows about that, you know, we can't say because we've had private conversation with people and we said we wouldn't.
Just say it quietly.
Whisper into the microphone.
So there are going to be people who leave MGP not because of the whiskey. They're not going to leave because they can't get the whiskey or they don't want the whiskey. They don't want to have to fight for the barrels, or they don't want to have to go through the process of buying from them. That's the situation, is that MGP is now moving into their own brands, and they have a Kentucky Derby thoroughbred contender in Penelope. Remus, okay, the brand's got some work. Rossville,
Well, I think they
okay.
made I mean, I'll challenge you. Do you think they made a mistake going with Remus as a
I do.
gangster and like
Not
a
the
very
character I
Not
would
the-
pull
yeah,
from
Is
exactly.
that the
Not-
controversial thing that I heard?
Yes.
It's very
Wife or
controversial. I mean,
Yes,
regardless of
Remus was a murderer, got the first insanity plea in our country's history, but
And
he
that's who we want to name our bourbon after.
but he
made
owned
good bourbon.
he owned
so it's
the,
okay.
he owned the facility. How many brands are named after bootleggers though? And you know, I mean, seriously, there are brands that are affiliated with all sorts of Confederate shitheads. You know, so like
I mean, that's why Rebel changed their name.
I mean, we can't go around and play the like, oh, he's a murderer, we don't like the whiskey, the brand. You know, I mean, I mean, they probably shouldn't have named it Remus.
So
maybe-
murder's not where you draw the line.
Well, no.
We need to establish where this line is.
I just think that like there's a lot of whiskeys that are named after shitty people.
It's not that
That's
they
true.
named it Remus. It's that they didn't market it well. And the reason that they're doing well now is because
First of all, y'all know the story. They didn't name it. They acquired
Well,
a little bitty
but-
brand in Cincinnati that had a little bump.
but they could have released their own brand called Penelope. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
They weren't good marketers. The reason
No,
they're doing
yeah.
well now is Danny and Mike, especially Mike, is a very good marketer. What they acquired was not a brand. They acquired somebody with a very good marketing sense.
Without a doubt.
And that's why they're doing well now. They could have named whatever they wanted, but they were never going to be able to market it well.
And
to
also,
consumers.
Luxco is, you know, even when they were the David Sherman company in the 50s and 60s, they were brilliant marketers. They created Old Ezra and survived a lawsuit against Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
I mean, they have two very brilliant minds there when it comes to marketing. And so they are making a shift. I just hope they stick to it. Like, I don't think that if they want to make that push, because I believe that you put that Indiana bourbon up against Kentucky bourbon blind, it's 50-50. I don't think Kentucky bourbon
Depends who
wins
makes it.
outright. You know,
Yeah, I would agree
for
with
sure.
that.
that's great whiskey.
Yeah.
I think their biggest mistake was trying to make something out of Ross and Squibb. It's like they've tried to
Talk about
push
horrible
this.
names.
They've tried to push this on
Oh,
us
man.
so much, and every time we read it on a press release, I'm just like, oh,
MGP.
yeah. It's just like you are who you are. Quit trying to like romanticize it. And I think
Yeah.
people now MGP's like it's an okay thing, and like people are okay with it, and they're trying to ship this story
But
that's
look,
kind of like
I think that's the other problem here. That distillery has legitimate, real history connected to Ross and Squibb, as well as Old Quaker. They could have named it something Old Quaker, because they have those facilities too. Again, they named a brand after a murderer. That's
Quaker.
in
seems like
hindsight,
an
maybe they
easier-
should have started with Ross and Squibb.
I wanted to
Quaker's
see
a
what the
better bet.
whiteboard looked like when they were thinking of the names, and they were like, cross that one. I mean, and that really Ross and Squibb
Yeah.
and Remus were like, this is the top two. This is it.
They
But-
may have had a few pours.
But the whiskey, again, is good, and they have legitimate history there. And I would say, Jordan, you've been there. I
Yeah.
would say if they want to genuinely connect with this incredible audience, open the place up for tours.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was-
100%.
It was one of the
100%.
most fun places I've been, and maybe just because it is so like you're not supposed to bring in a phone and all this stuff, but they kind of opened that up. But you go in this old warehouse, and it's like a Tower
mean you
Terror
didn't-
ride, and
I mean, they just told us we couldn't pee in the warehouse.
It's
Oh,
but
yeah.
no, it's history, right? You go through. There's old like iron cast Seagrams, like things
A lot
on
of
the
the old
floor. And
Seagram
it's very
brick
much. I
stuff.
mean, it's 100% a working man's distillery, and it's just very very cool to see, and people would love to see that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as cool as Buffalo Trace or Heaven Hill has the Disneyland of bourbon experiences. I mean, this is harkening back to this is what it was like 7 years ago when they made bourbon, and it's like what maybe there's a computer system now, but it's still the same.
But
and
you
it's
still
super
walk
cool.
by the computer system, and a guy's working. Like,
Yes.
he's truly working. And
Yes.
you're like, hey, how you doing? And just
He's like,
Yes.
quit bothering me.
he wakes,
Yeah, they
wakes up
here?
from his nap.
they're not used to people talking.
Look at that
One of my
text.
favorite little pieces out of that whole distillery is they have a warehouse that has a welding shop underneath it, and there's barrels of whiskey. It's like they built it with so much concrete and brick that they're allowed to have actual sparks near barrels of bourbon.
Interesting.
and if you do a barrel pick, they let you hold the torch.
Just, right next to the bunk.
Hey,
door,
real
right?
quick, can you remind me what we're doing with 1 through 4 again?
Just drinking and figure out which one you want.
Figure out which one you like.
What are you going to vote on?
And
I
also,
am-
is there pizza left over?
We missed you, Carrie.
I could
We
use some
missed you.
pizza.
He's
Pizza
done
would be
like
really
eating
good.
pizza before a barrel.
Hey, can I
pick.
ask a question though, real quick, just on the MGP stuff?
Yeah.
And the people getting smarter. Do you think that has people getting smarter and realizing that so much stuff is MGP? Do you think that maybe that has hurt the industry?
I don't
being
think it.
so
I
smart?
don't look. I don't think there's been a better brand than Smoke Wagon in the last 5 years, and everybody knows that's MGP. He talks about it. It's his own like custom blend.
But Sealbox, when they first came out with that uncut, unfiltered, everybody rushed to get it.
Mhm.
Now it's everywhere.
Mic Drop was like that too.
Not seal box everywhere.
Not just Seal. No, I'm not talking about Sealbox. The Sealbox is amazing, and the owner's amazing.
Yeah, but man, it was-
Wagon.
but
You
said
said seal box. It's smoke.
But that's where Sealbox.
What are we
was where
talking?
everyone
Are we
went
talking
to
about
get it.
Sealbox or?
I know
yeah.
you're talking about it as
Whenever
like it was
Smoke Wagon
available
When
for sale
Sealbox
online.
dropped Smoke Wagon uncut, unfiltered,
that's the-
everybody sent links
Well,
to each other.
you know,
I think they
it's-
just flooded it with
It's
those.
the nature of anything where like everybody wants the new shiny toy. Like that's not a bourbon thing. That's a everywhere thing.
I know
Yeah.
this. I know this, Carrie. Many craft distillers lament the fact that no one wants their whiskey, and they would rather buy a source product.
It's got to
And then they come around, and the same people who buy the source product will meet that craft distiller at a whiskey fest and say like, "Oh, you know what? I just don't like this as much as so and so." MGP whiskey is safe. The hardest thing you can do in this business is to be a craft distiller or buy stocks from smaller distillers and try to blend them. The safe,
I can tell you that.
the safe play from a business perspective is to bottle what's true. Come up with your branding, come up with your story, but bottle what works.
That actually is a great kind of segue into another one. Is what's more important? Is it the whiskey or is it the brand?
Brand.
I think at this point,
It's a
what
brand.
you're seeing is that as a whiskey geek,
I think we got to
Yeah.
preface this.
It's
We're
gotta
not
be
talking
over a
about
hurdle.
it.
Yeah.
We
We're
got to
talking-
preface this
yeah,
as
I
like
mean-
sales.
yeah,
Sales,
absolutely,
not
because
what we
I
think.
mean, Trey Zoller taught us best is like if you try to appease the whiskey geek, you're gonna go broke.
Mhm.
There's just no way that you're gonna be able to have trajectory
Until you
and
do
keep
You
double.
going.
got a 2-year run with Whiskey Geeks.
We're
And
all
you're-
assholes.
Yeah, you're hot 1 minute and you're cold the next. But I kind of want to push it to you all. I mean, do we all agree that honestly, like brand trumps how good the whiskey is actually in the bottle?
This is the guy who put it
100%.
on the ocean, though.
It is. But that's it's
branding.
brand.
It's
That's
brand.
brand. I mean,
can you taste the salt and the
can you?
sharps?
I mean,
Yes.
if you had a bottle of Jefferson's, you'd like. Well, other than the 17-year-old Stitzel that they came out
Yeah.
with, which we all know was probably some of the best whiskey ever around.
Yep.
But today, if you get a bottle of Jefferson's, are you buying it for the whiskey, or you're buying it because somebody told me to get this, or it's the brand, or
Yeah.
is it like it's the bottle shape?
I was
all that.
100% the brand.
In 2016, I was gonna mention Jefferson's Ocean because that was the one that after Ocean Voyage 2, everybody in Atlanta was waiting for Voyage 3. And they could not wait to get a hold of Voyage 3. Like that was the one that was
Idiots
like
are in Atlanta.
everyone wanted Voyage 3. And that's just MGP, right?
I don't.
Oh,
I
no.
I can't recall. I'm
No,
pretty
no,
sure it was
it's
all Kentucky.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that's whenever it got off of like the O search, like actual shark ship, and went on containers. Like I think only maybe one.
No,
The very
I think
first
O search,
release.
which was a
It was the
completely
first
different one.
release. That was the very first release.
that was just the first one.
That was 3 barrels.
So I'm either two, which is first two or.
No, I like how he changed it. And be
Don't
like,
just-
"Ah,
all right,
let's-
all
I
right.
can't be wrong.
So-
I could just change the subject. But
I'll circle it back. So going back to the question, it's definitely brand. And I think the main thing, and I said this on a lot of roundtables in the past, everyone sitting here live right now, everyone watching live, everyone who will watch this later, we are like 0.001% of the whiskey community, right? We're like the super whiskey fans. We're deep in it. The majority of consumers will never watch this. They'll never read Breaking Bourbon. They'll
Aw,
never,
they're all
they'll
gonna
never
watch
listen
it.
to Bourbon
Sad.
Pursuit, right? But no, that's 100% the truth, right? And they
Did you
don't
say
like.
shut up.
That's why we.
And
have
by
that
the way,
line.
you're all fat and
No,
ugly.
but like, no, that's 100% the truth. So, to the majority of consumers out there, you have to keep in mind what we like, and the community is always super focused on what's hot, and like we'll try new things. We're going to go after. The average consumer doesn't. They're going to ask, hey, my friends like this. Do you have Blanton's? I heard this is
Oh,
really good.
he had to
Yeah.
drop.
I
Bland's
want
there.
the hot thing right now.
All right,
and
all right,
that's what they're going to
Jordan.
go after.
I can
Jordan,
vouch for that.
I'm going to counter though. I'm going to
Okay,
counter.
all right.
That may be the quantity, but the quality.
Oh,
Are
there
all
you
of
go.
us
There you
whiskey
go.
geeks?
All right, that's true. That's
We're the
true.
ones walking in and spending way too much
All
freaking
right,
money.
I think there's
walking out with cases.
even
We
with
also
this.
look better.
Hold on. Even with this whiskey fan audience, high die hard. I observe you all and I judge you on what you choose off of the table. We put out some bottles, and what did you all go after?
It was the
Maker's Mark
Makers.
cellar aged, and it's like it's okay.
I don't know. There's
Everybody's
a lot
looking
of
around
things
going,
you
"Yep,
met
that was
with,
me.
and
That
there
was
was,
and it's like,
Seal Box
but
15.
even consumer, even like the
I asked
most,
for Jack Daniel's. Black
even the
Label.
most educated consumers will go after the big brand names, and that's what matters. It's like I could tell you this is if I put them in 2 bottles and they didn't have labels on them, I tell you that one's the best one. You might believe me, and you might pick that one. But if they have brands and labels on them, you're going to be like, I could tell you JT Mellick is better than that cellar age. You're going to be like, bullshit. You're going to try the cellar age. You're going to pick that. And I think it's better.
I was looking for the Rio, Ryan. I
Oh,
was really
yeah.
disappointed
You know
that-
my Amberana.
that you
so.
didn't have.
I love Mike and Danny, but I don't like Amberana.
He's not going to Rio anytime soon.
It's the safe choice, right? Like they went after not this group, but in general, you have a consumer out there, they see Makers. It's a safe choice. People like safe. They don't like trying new things. Like in general, people do not like change. They like the safe choice.
I would agree with all that, but I would say the amount of people that are kind of to Fred's point about this is the most educated a bourbon drinking audience has been. I think that's expanding. So you have people who are willing to, hey, maybe I'll go buy Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare when I see it, but then I'll grab New Riff, Chattanooga Whiskey, Pursuit, other time. I think that's expanding. And so where it was 0.01% 10 years ago, it's probably at like 5% now, if I had to guess blindly. But
Blindly.
You know, I love what I loved about this roundtable and everything that we've done is that we give our most educated guesses and we're always wrong.
well, there's no way to
we're
prove
right
us wrong.
sometimes.
So
Yes.
that's
Occasionally.
Dude, have you seen the media lately? It's all, I mean, no one ever says the media is right, you know.
Well,
We're
okay.
technically bourbon media.
we're
Right,
basically meteorologists. You don't have
Yeah.
to be right. You just have to give a prediction.
Yeah, there you go. Close enough. So before we get too far and before we
Hold on. The
please.
pizza crew back there, can they settle down a little bit because they're distracting me?
try to make sure that the
And make
pizza's-
sure you save some for Carrie.
Save
Tell
the
us if
pizza.
the maker cellar
Y'all
age
with
is
that big
empty.
old bourbon selection back there, can you settle down just a little bit? Just take it down like one notch.
That's
Thank
his
you.
way of asking how many slices.
By the
are
way,
left
Kenny's-
and we
Also,
need to
bring me
wrap
pizza
up.
and you can keep going.
And
Kenny's typing, editing this out.
No,
Time
no.
slot.
And Ryan wants to know if there's cellar aged left because he wants the last
Yes.
pour.
Yeah.
Don't
get rid of all of
I'm
it.
hearing
You
Tim
can
say
have
it's
all.
gone.
The,
I don't think we did a whiskey quickie on it yet either.
we're not going to get any more celery sent to us.
No, probably not at this rate.
They sent that to y'all. Jeez.
Hey, we're doing an experiment. We're handing it out to the die-hard whiskey fans to see what they think.
I think everyone still seated right here can have some of the Buffalo Trace Roundtable.
It's
Pass it around.
I know
Yeah.
it's exciting
Yeah,
to
you
be able
gotta
to try it.
pass it
Yeah,
around.
yeah. Grab
on,
it.
sure.
Oh, look at that. They're ready.
I like it. I like it. To preface this, we picked this like 9 years ago, and it was our first barrel pick. So
And
I think-
Carrie
I
wasn't
think we did
there,
well.
so it's really
Just-
good.
There, so it's really good.
We did well.
And I didn't even have seal box yet. And Kenny,
We didn't have anything yet.
can we say it's statute of limitations. Kenny just packaged these all up in his house and sent them out.
we did. I
We
remember
did.
they
Oh, I
got
forgot
rejected
about
by.
that.
They got rejected by the post office or UPS. and we had to go-
No. Let me tell the
FedEx.
story.
Yeah.
So yes, we had
Yeah, you're
packaged.
good.
We
Go
had,
ahead.
I think, a little bit over 200 of these. Actually, there was like 225 bottles in this barrel. It was a
That was
lot of
That
bottles.
was a big barrel.
And this was when we had just a handful of Patreons, and so people would come in. They bought multiple bottles, and we would pack them up in the basement, put shipping labels on them, and I would put them on the in my wife's 4Runner because that's the only car I had that could actually carry that many bottles. Took them to FedEx, dropped them off, but I didn't take them to FedEx. I mean, that's rookie move, right? I would take them to Walgreens because that's because they don't care to do pickups.
Kenny had a booming hot sauce business.
Yes.
That,
And when the FedEx guy came, you know, when you do like 3 or 4, they're kind of cool with it. When you drop off 50 at a time, they're not as cool with it.
You
And-
sent a picture of that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a picture of that.
Well, it gets better. So not only did the FedEx guy, was he fucking really mad at me, but what he did is they took it all the way back to FedEx HQ, opened up one of the boxes, and they're like, yeah, we're not doing this. So I had to, I mean, because by law, like they can destroy or confiscate every single one of these boxes. They were very nice, and they said, why don't you come here and pick it up? So I had to drive my wife's car back to the FedEx hub and put every single box back in my car, take it home.
And we had to put all new labels on.
All
them.
new labels. I had to eat the cost of every single label on there because they were like, yeah, we're not even going to refund you the labels here. And I was like, I'm not even going to be mad about that. Let's just be glad we got the bottles. So that was the BCR 100 story there. And then we continued to do the same exact thing, but we would only do like 3 bottles at a time. So it took a couple months to get out.
Wow.
That's
all right,
the
are we going to
story.
talk about our barrel pick
Let's do it.
as we approach the 8:00 hour?
Since you're going to be selling it.
Is that what we're doing here with these 4 glasses?
Yes.
So first 2 are bourbon, second 2 are rye.
Correct. Good guess.
You're 10 years in, you still got it.
It's
Look
a
at
genius.
that palate, people. Look at that palate. I think so. 3 reminds me of Tim's Candle. If you walk through the foyer, it's like very Christmassy, spicy, sweet vanilla. For a rye, I think that toast does a lot to it.
that back.
Yeah,
When it's empty.
I'm leaning towards 3, but
Bring it back.
Will you, Carrie? I know it's been a while. Let Blake
Hey.
talk.
No.
Gotta let him
You're
talk.
talking?
Well, I'm trying to keep you talking.
We can't
so I
talk
can
over each other. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. Jordan, you go. Where are you feeling on this?
Bad
So in terms of, well, I like two. I like the first.
Woo! Go for two!
No. I like two of the four. So the first,
Shit.
I was gonna say two
the
is my-
first, I really like the first bourbon a lot. It's, I don't know, that one grips me a little bit. I really love the nose on it.
Grips.
It grips me, man. The
Grips.
nose is great. The
caresses- it
palate,
caresses
it's really tasty. You know, I'm gonna just call it 3. That was good for the rise, but I don't know. I'm gravitating towards A overall. I just
Hey, you just changed from numbers to from numerals to numbers.
yeah. So it's bullet point number 1.
I'll take number A.
No, it's I'm not sure how we're labeling these, but the very first bourbon, the very first pour of the 4, that one stood out the whole time, and I keep going back to it, and that's what's tickling my palate.
Well, I'll put the cart before the horse because I agree with Fred. I think the second sample was the best of the bourbon in my opinion,
Mhm.
and I also like the last rye, number 4.
Same. By the way, how it's so rare that we are simpatico
I know.
on anything. Like
I can't wait to hug it out with you, buddy.
2 and 4 for me too.
So
All
yeah,
4 burned my lips, and I really like
'cause
this
you're
Buffalo Trace.
It's because you're chapped.
Yeah, this is just burning.
The
all
Buffalo
4 of
Trace
them.
is just water, though, right?
No, it's delicious.
Yeah, delicious water. But
What do you like, Ryan?
I'm gonna let everybody else go first. I'll go
Yeah,
last.
this is.
Okay.
But by the way, every time you talk about this, it just hits Ryan's ego, either up or down. So
Apparently, can you? I mean, sorry, Carrie likes water, so
Fine. I like being hydrated.
what do you think about the 4, though, Kerry?
do you need more samples before you?
I'm
make a
gonna put
decision?
them all together and
Ah.
then check them out.
Ah.
One.
that guy.
We missed you, Carrie.
I
We
knew.
missed you.
I knew. I
We
would
missed
kicked
you.
him off years ago.
Oh.
What about you, Brian?
I'm on samples 2 and 3, so I'm a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
Than everybody. So I like the second bourbon and I like
Right.
the first rye. And when I look at which one I've drank most of, it's number 3. It's the first rye.
Mhm.
So those are my 2 favorite. They had a lot of similarities even between the bourbons and the ryes. I got a lot of menthol in a lot of them. I got a lot of that coming through. For me, it's a toss-up on 2 and 3.
Who's
So
left? Fred?
are we buying 1 barrel here, or are we doing 2?
You're buying all
One.
4.
or is this
One.
a?
We
is
need your
this
credit
one,
card,
but if
Fred.
you really like, we can save it for your barrel pick. You don't have to show up. You can.
No, we already got people committed to that. From Club
No, I'm
Mars
just kidding.
So, but also someone had a suggestion in the YouTube chat of doing a blend of 2. Is that on the
blue rye?
table as well?
Is that
We
because
got a
we're all
blue rye?
rye?
You can blend the 2 bourbons and
Or the 2
ryes.
ryes.
Or
Yeah.
all 4 of them together is delicious.
Is it? Well, shit. We'll try.
We talked about blend of straight
Well,
whiskeys.
actually, we will sell all 4 barrels.
But hey, listen, it's y'all's company, so you can do what you want here.
I mean, do you like money or not?
I do. We're just short on inventory.
What do you like?
Oh wait,
Ryan?
so will this eat into my barrel pick? Then fuck it. No,
No,
we're
it
picking 1 barrel.
No. On the bourbon side, I really like one. It just has this nice walnutty brown
Thank you.
sugar kind of, just really rich, robust. On the rise, I'm with number 3. I think it's just really nice and balanced, but it also has this nice just kind of deepness, riches, but some like coffee notes and vanilla cream, and it's a really nice, dangerously delicious rye. So
I'm a big fan of
We're
number
right
3.
there.
Yeah.
We're right there, Ryan.
I love 3. I would say if we do a bourbon, the blend of the 2 is very nice, and I love the nose on one. But
you know what's
to me-
ironic is these 2 finishes would be the exact replica of your seal box blend.
Well, I'm glad you said that
because you really liked it.
That's
Well,
why I
it's good.
picked
It's
them.
One of the tobacco finishes.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's keep talking amongst ourselves because I don't think there was a clear winner there. Am I wrong? Was anybody out there keeping notes?
I think you and I
3.
were the only ones for 2.
I think
3 is
3,
delicious.
number 3 was the
A lot of people like 3.
All right. Well, if you need to try some more, try it. Let's have one more topic before we close this out because it is BCR 100. I just want to have one more kind of thing to go around, and it's going to be a quick one. And is which distillery or brand do you feel is the best job of appropriately pricing their whiskey?
Ooh.
I'm gonna go first.
Trace.
Pursuit Spirits
Thank you.
is the
I agree.
best out here, and if you had to back it up, I would go with Breaking Bourbon Spirits.
Don't forget Seal.
Don't forget Pride
and
of Indiana.
Oh, Sealbox. Sorry.
Sealbox. Yeah.
Yeah, Sealbox is great.
Those private reserves are a bargain.
15-year seal box. Are you kidding me?
But in reality, like, I mean, we used to think of what Willet was at $10 per year was appropriately fair when you get a 13-year bottle for $130. Those days are gone. In regards of what is today, what places or what brands do you feel are appropriately pricing a bottle for the age, for the whiskey, whether it's barrel proof or whether it's not, to what people are getting?
I think there's a few, and I think we could all look and say, okay, it's got to be the big guys. I saw a 175 of Jim Beam Black Label, 7-year age dated for $35 the other day.
Yeah, but then we also saw a 16-year-old granddad for $200.
No, but that's what we saying across the board or just.
It just says which brand do you
Okay,
feel has
I'll-
the best job of
I think Chattanooga Whiskey from the beginning has taken a whiskey to the people philosophy. Whenever everybody's jacking up prices, having $200 limited editions, they always stayed true to that. I think Penelope. There we go. Is that the peated?
No, it's the gin.
Oh, that's gin.
That's the peach gin.
Peach
Peach
gin.
liqueur. Yeah, I think
Pass.
Is that
they
Chattanooga?
have some great ones. Yeah, New Riff I think does a really good job with that. Penelope's done a really great job with that. I won't go
Rio?
down the list, but I
Just
think
name 'em
that's
all,
some
Blake.
that have been very fair of saying like, hey, we're not going to get too high on the highs, but at the same time, we're not going to just bottom out.
All right, then I guess the better question is who's the most asinine in pricing?
Ooh, that's a good
Oh.
question.
Yeah.
That's
That's a great
Sazerac, right?
Real quick,
Easy.
who sponsors
It's
the
easy.
podcast before?
Well,
I
nobody
answer?
anymore.
Sazerac's interesting because I would say probably they're
The stupid Weller lines.
well, that's the thing is like those Weller, the Daniel Weller, that's the made up
Yeah.
cousin of William Merlot and all this stuff.
Made up cousin.
And like,
oh man,
but
he's gonna haunt
the
you in your dreams
antique
tonight.
collection is an MSRP of $99, or is it $150 now? Sorry, I don't buy antique collections.
You don't get
anymore, but
access.
I don't get access, but yeah, I mean, gosh, this is a tough question. I mean, I think Heaven Hill's pretty fair on their pricing. I mean, you got a 14-year Parker's in a cognac cask, and it was around $150.
Yeah, they're fair.
I think that's
They're fair.
they've been pretty fair all along.
I mean, I like the Four Roses pricing. I mean, you can still get small batch select.
I
for
thought we were going to
$50.
talk about what's asinine. Now we're going back
All
to
right,
what's
well,
fair.
We're not trying to make
I didn't get a
enemies.
chance to say it.
All right, good. Do it.
Yeah,
Let's hear
so
it.
Four Roses, I think, has good pricing. On the asinine side, it's Sazerac. I mean, it's that double eagle rare nonsense. It's the Weller nonsense. You still
But
can
those
get,
are like once in a lifetime kind of bottles, though.
Old Carter.
but it's okay.
Which
you
will
go.
be
Carry
no
wins.
longer exists. Will soon be on the auction
no,
block.
Yes.
it's on the
Yes.
auction block, but
Yes.
Mark will buy it back. I mean, it's going to happen, and it'll
Oh, is
still
that
be-
what's happening?
It's going to totally happen.
Is-
Mark will still be in control. Sherry will get her little piece. That'll be fine. But yeah, that's crazy pricing.
Old Carter can suck it.
Lean into the mic for that.
Yeah.
Say it again.
It's actually an
Okay.
incredible brand. So
Yeah.
I mean, so here's a few people in the chat. They said that obviously Willet has gone way above and beyond what it is. I mean, we have seen people that have been posting on Facebook recently and like, oh, now $500 Willets are sitting. Like they're sitting at Liquor Barn. They're sitting at these places. Nobody's paying that for a 13-year-old source product anymore.
Well, it's not source; it's distilled by them.
Not 13.
Oh,
13 still
13. Yeah,
sourced.
yeah, you're right.
That's
Sorry.
still sourced.
so
Even somebody said Wild Turkey LEs,
Yeah.
asinine priced.
Not Russell Reserve 15.
So the
Best
Wild
release of the whole
Turkey,
year.
Well,
I would say
maybe,
like,
but, I
the,
mean, it's
the
too-
single Rickhouse one. I'm like, is that the 15s I
gimmick.
get. The 13 was incredible. The single Rickhouse at $300 seemed like a bit of a stretch. Whenever the 10-year-old regular Russells is sitting there for $40, so I don't blame them. But
And apparently, the recent batch has like
I don't feel like
no,
Wild
no, it has
Turkey.
to be the certain
I don't feel like
barcode.
Wild
Yeah,
Turkey's
yeah.
really gone obscene with their pricing. I feel like y'all need to
you
leave
know
it
what's
alone.
crazy about Wild Turkey is that their pricing in the 90s is not too different for 101 that it is today. There's like a $5-10 price difference from back then to today. Now, on the positive side, I agree with everything that Blake said. I will add Woodinville is one of the best priced great small distillers that's out there.
Truth.
And they think about their pricing. Now they're going to have a packaging change, so I don't know. Usually when there's a packaging change, there's an increase in price. But Woodinville is fantastic. I also, on the source side, I think what Aaron does at Smoke Wagon, keeping his small batch under $40 is pretty incredible. In terms of something that's too expensive, look, no one up here really thinks about, like, I don't think that's a fair question on the distillers. I think we can put a lot of the blame on the distribution game, because most of the things that they're getting half, what's the amount that you get when you sell to a wholesaler? Like half of your SRP. So if you have a $50 bottle, you're getting about $25.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Give or take.
I mean, that's the,
Because Blake's got to make his margin.
yeah, there's, everyone's got to,
Freaking Blake.
Blake's buying pizza tonight.
everyone's got to get their vig.
He
And he still has terrible internet. It's unbelievable.
Everyone keeps bringing up Sazerac on the pricing, but their SRPs are stupid low on a lot of those products. And the only ones we can point toward are the ones like Kenny said that, you know what, they should be expensive. 25-year-old Eagle Rare, which I had, it's friggin' unbelievable. And, things like that, and like Michter Celebration, friggin' unbelievable, $5,000. They probably should be $5,000. You take a look at Scotch, a 40-year-old Scotch will set you back $30,000, $50,000. And if you're lucky, 12. Like
Not me.
we're
That's why you don't drink
nowhere.
Scotch.
We're nowhere even close to the ridiculous pricing that's in Scotch. So
Because we're not dumb.
There's a few brands trying though, Fred.
they're
Trying.
the minute that the Chinese billionaires begin to like fly here and start getting like 25-year-old Michters and Pappy 23 and stuff like that,
Yep.
that's when we'll see it,
100%.
because
100%.
that's who set in motion the cognac pricing and Scotch.
Is it
all
cognac?
the
It's not cognac?
and all the distillate cognac.
It's cognac?
Well, I mean, I think tomato, caramel, caramel, but I think all the distillers are moving their focus. A lot of the distillers are moving their focus away from European exports. They're really trying to capture the Chinese, the wealth in China right now.
You see it too, right? You see it with trying to take a page right out of Scotch. So you see Woodford really trying with their baccarat bottle, right? You see
yes,
Buffalo
absolutely.
Trace with their display cases for Daniel Weller and Millennium and for Double Eagle Rare. Like you see it, they're like, all right, we just need a really good high-end glass manufacturer, a higher age whiskey, and let's just start cranking up the price. And it's gonna take. I mean, there's gonna be space for these brands.
Yeah.
There's always gonna be the $20, $30, $40 bottle of bourbon, but we're gonna start seeing those $25,000, $30,000. There will be a $50,000 bourbon within the next 5 to 10 years.
We're seeing it. We're seeing it in auctions.
So but not at auction, just
but-
straight up
but
MSRP.
straight up, yeah.
Here's
Can I-
your $50,000 bourbon. It's gonna
Can I
happen.
tell you that, was it Weller Millennium? That was the latest one that actually sat on shelves. They couldn't sell it.
$8,000, something like that is what SRP was
it-
for it.
They couldn't sell it like they did previous stuff. Like it's the high end bourbon is beginning to sit.
Well, I think that it is all going to go back to a cultural acceptance. Obviously, Scotch is much bigger, much more widely accepted across the world, and it is going to take the big six to really start pushing into international markets and being the champions that can find people that bring everything along with it.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's going to happen.
Scotch also has access to Europe that we just cannot penetrate.
But Buffalo Trace and Sazerac are trying, right? You
They're
see
trying,
you
yeah.
saw their pop up in London. You see their store or their pop up in Paris during the Olympics. You see their store in London. Like they are trying hard, and other brands will start following.
They may try, but people in Poland, they're just not drinking bourbon.
Well, okay, fair enough.
You
fair
know,
enough.
you go to Spain.
We need a market visit. We need to go there and figure
Spain.
this out.
We can
Go to
write that off,
Spain,
right?
go to Portugal, go to France. They're just not drinking it. And
What are they
like,
drinking then?
so they'll obviously
Potato
wine.
vodka.
Obviously
Aperol.
wine. They do drink Scotch on the spirit side.
There's Aperol spritz stands
But-
everywhere.
But brandies are
Brandies.
very big there. But it's a wine culture, and that does cut into the spirit space.
But Beam and Cokes and Jack and Cokes and even Makers that has a huge global presence. Like they're still mixing their whiskeys and they're still drinking them that ways in clubs. There's space. Like the toe's in the door. They just need to kick it open now.
One of the beautiful things about traveling in Europe is that eventually you will be in a small town, go to a small restaurant. You go there, you know, you're going to get an incredible slice of beef and some potatoes that are cooked 1,000 times better than any place you can get in like a small diner like that. And you look over there and there'll be like an octagon bottle of wild turkey that's been sitting there since like 1975. And you're like, oh my God, you have that, you know, 8-year-old 101 wild turkey. Like, yeah, you know, someone buys a drink every 10 years. We just keep it back there. It's like, I'll have a drink, you know.
You know, the last few times I've traveled to Europe, it's like, and I think this was true for the Renaissance in bourbon in America, is that the old-fashioned cocktail is what resurrected here. And I think you start to see glimpses of that in Europe, in Spain and Italy, especially when I've been to the last 2 times. I've seen more and more people start to order that cocktail, and they have Manhattans on their menus. And I think that's where it starts. It's going to be a long putt, you know, for these brands to really penetrate and get it. But, you know, to be fair, they're not putting resources there. It's going to take a Herculean effort to go there and really educate consumers on what these products are, what they mean. I mean, Europeans love Americana like else, you know, in every other genre. They just haven't latched on to American whiskey yet.
I think the decision comes in the boardroom. They're like, do we put our focus in Europe or in a place like Japan and China that is not just, you know, it's an easier sell in the Asian markets than it is in Europe. And I think that they got hit so bad with the tariffs last time that a lot of them got caught flat-footed because they never even got off the ground, and then they got tariffed, and they're just like, you know, we can't survive there. They like Korea, Vietnam, Japan. We'll see with China. Those markets can survive a tariff because they drink so much bourbon. I guarantee you, Japan would outdrink everybody in this room.
100%.
Like if they
I know a couple of guys.
Well, let's have a
They-
Bourbon Olympics then.
they
Bring it
have.
on.
I like
Bring
this
it on.
Whiskey Olympics.
I'm
Here
just
we go.
saying, like, and the education level that they have in Japan it's unreal. It's unreal.
All right. Well, I was doing a little kind of side conversation to figure out what were people choosing, and the winner is going to be barrel number 3. So
All right.
That was good. That was good.
that is going to be a Pursuit United double oak.
I knew it.
A double oaked rye
It is.
for the Bourbon Community Roundtable.
Can we pass that out to those in the audience?
Yes, that's actually what we're going to do. So anybody that's in the audience, feel free to come up and grab a pour of that. But as we start closing out, first off, I just want to say thank you to everybody that came here tonight. This is truly special. Thank you to you all.
And sorry, the Maker's Mark Cellar Age is gone.
Thanks to everyone watching too.
But yeah, thank you to everybody that's watching. But also as a parting gift for everybody, there's 2 barrels over there on the way out that have a bunch of barrel samples in there. And Ryan and I looked at it and we're like, we will never drink any of this whiskey. So please take 2 barrel samples of like 100 ml or 200 ml bottles with you on your way out as you go home.
And if you can lift the barrel, they're full, and you can take it as well. So.
And you can take Blake with you if you can lift him up.
Their insurance does not cover it. Please do not lift the
Hey,
barrel.
all those barrel samples have been cellar aged. So
Yes, their
yeah.
attorney, do not strain your back on lifting anything.
Cellar Age is a registered trademark of Maker's Mark. Please do not listen to Ryan on that one.
All right, so let's close this out in true bourbon
they've
community.
been mezzanine aged in.
There we go. All right, we'll close it out in true roundtable fashion. So Blake, starting on the left and working our way this way.
Yes, I'll keep it short because this was a lot of fun. So thank you all for joining in and coming out tonight. And man, 100 episodes, hard to believe. So thank you. And I don't think everybody realizes how much work goes in behind the scenes of one of these episodes. We sit down, we do this. It's a lot of fun. And there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I
Kenny
can vouch.
puts in at least
Blake just
15
showed
minutes.
up, and me and Kenny are scrambling, plugging in shit in here, and Blake's just like 7 o'clock. I'm here.
I mean, if you bring the talent in at the time. So. But no, thank you guys. You know, Fred, Kenny, Ryan, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes while we get to do the fun stuff. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, and just, you know, to build on what I said earlier. It still just blows my mind, and that we're even here and we're all sitting here, and I don't want to get emotional.
Here come the waterfall.
But it is just wild. I'm so thankful for this bourbon community, like what it's done for my hometown of Bardstown and in Kentucky and everything. It's unbelievable. I've made so many great friends. I've met so many incredible people, and that people come and watch us and support us like this. It's very, very cool. And me and Kenny get to chase our dream, trying to build a bourbon brand, and it blows my mind, and I'm super grateful for it all. Have lifelong friends, and it's been a super cool ride, and we still got a long ride to go, and I hope you all continue to keep on the journey with us.
Yeah.
By the way, he always gets this way when he has a few drinks. So
Let's see, to wrap it up, Jordan, one of the three guys from Breaking Bourbon. I think we all truly enjoy being part of this group of people. We genuinely look forward to the next 100 episodes, but more so, we look forward to the continued friendships, especially at this table, that we will maintain. And, bourbon may go away, but these friendships will stay. So I think that's the most meaningful part of all of this. So cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
yeah.
No, I'm going to go last.
Are you okay? Fine.
Wow. I
He
wasn't
gets to
ready.
call Anchorman.
Wow, I guess he does. All right. Same as these other guys says. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for you all, and we're so appreciative of that. And we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Pursuit Spirits and what started as Bourbon Pursuit. So thanks to these guys. Thanks to you all. No one would have read Bourbon Justice if it weren't for you all. Thanks for the folks who brought the damn book for me to sign. I mean, it warms my cold ass heart to do that. So thanks for being here. Thanks for you guys. Look for another 100 episodes to go.
Cheers.
So when Brian says his cold ass heart, he is a litigator. So
It is a cold ass heart.
lawyers,
he's our attorney. I cry, and he doesn't care about billing.
Yeah.
I'm billing for this right now.
I was going to say, are they getting billed for this? I've been doing this since 2006, and I can't tell you the trials and tribulations and the bumps and everything. It all is nothing to me, because I get to sit down with awesome people and drink bourbon, and that's what I do for a living. I love you all. Thank you all so much. And I love everyone on this panel.
Me too.
I mean that. You too, Carrie.
Even Carrie.
Cheers, Fred.
Cheers.
So I know a lot of y'all don't know me.
Well, here, let me go, and then you want to play Anchorman? Do you want to lead us out?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that. Just to kind of, I don't get teared up like Ryan. Ryan's a lot more heartfelt and everything, but
Stone cold over here.
I know, I'm just like business, but it really isn't though.
If
But
there was an Excel sheet there, you might tear up.
Look at
There's-
those
there's
cells.
there's a formula.
beautiful that VLOOKUP is. When we started talking about this, and Blake had said, "Hey, you should do an in-person roundtable for the 100th," and I was like, I don't think anybody cares. Like, we have so many events around here. It's going to be tough to get people in here. And holy shit, like, we sold out 50 tickets in 24 hours. And just to our community, it never made it to the public. I mean, it speaks volumes that it feels that we're on the right track. We've done something good. We've made impact in people's lives. And honestly, that's one of the things that I love about this podcast, is that I can talk to people and they can tell stories of how either the podcast or bourbon has truly changed their lives. And it can make the hair stand on my arm of just thinking of that, and thinking of the people that we've interviewed, thinking of all the different discussions that we've had through the years. I don't even think we got a chance to even go back and look at some of the bold claims we made on like the earlier roundtables.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, it's just
don't
like,
look at predictions.
how
Let's
much
not do
can you get right and how much can you get wrong?
Barrel will get acquired one of these.
I swear.
And
Four
Four
roses
Roses.
will sell.
And more roses.
Yeah.
It's going to sell.
That's mine every year.
But I mean, you just look at it, and it's just, I truly still want to say thank you for the community that came here, that showed up, and that came out, and just want to say thank you again for being a part of this. You're truly like the fuel that makes this engine run. So please keep supporting us, and we can't keep bringing more content to you. We're just going to keep bringing as much as we possibly can. So I appreciate you. All right, Anchorman, lead us out.
All right. So the first thing, first of all, Monday is the Veterans Day, and Fred, I want to say thank you for your service to our country.
Thanks, brother.
All of these guys that I got to know 10 years ago were not in the position they are now. All of them were just as amazing and kind and friendly as they are today, which is what is awesome about this hobby, that as all of these guys moved from hobby into business, none of them changed. And to me, it's such an honor to be back here today, because for me, this was just a hobby. I had a great time doing this. From 2014 till probably 2018, I had a blog. I was on this roundtable. I was talking to all these guys all the time, and I faded out because I burned out. And these guys today are the exact same that they were 10 years ago. There's no egos. There's no I'm better than any of you. And as successful as they have become, they're still the same people that I remember from 2 years ago. So I think that's what's amazing about not only this industry and this hobby, but also this whole roundtable that I'm a part of. And I'm super proud to be friends with these guys. And I hope that all of you get to know them and appreciate what we have in front of you of these guys who have not changed and will never change. And I am truly honored to have been called up today to come back for the 100th roundtable.
Thank you for being here, Carrie.
Great seeing you, buddy.
Carrie.
To Carrie. To Carrie.
Oh, it's okay.
Good, yeah.
There it is.
Decelerate.
Decelerate. All right. Well, with that, everybody, cheers. Thank you so much. That's going to wrap it up for Bourbon Community Roundtable number 100. Make sure you support the show if you like this show. Find us on Patreon. Find us on all your social media channels. And if you do love the show, share with a friend. That's the best way, not only just to share the love of what we're doing, but of everything we're talking about, of bourbon, of finding new people to help bring into the category that want to find the passion as much as we do as well. So with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Vodka
Toodles.
shots.
So I got a little slam poetry I'd like to share.
Now do we do the off-air stuff again?
That was awesome, man.
That was fun. That was super fun.
Like I said, you're more than welcome to hang around here for the next 30, 40 minutes. There's bourbon. There's bourbon on the way
Get
out.
the fuck out of here.
Whatever.
That was awesome, man.
Number 3.
You got it.
That was really fun. Thanks for. I know that was a lot of work. Thanks.
Hey, it was